NBC Sports Bay Area's Ray Ratto here on the show. How are you, Raymond?
Just for the record,
yes,
I'm only interrupting my viewing of England-Colombia for 3 people.
Yes.
My wife, one of my 2 children, and you.
Wait, which of your children?
They don't need to know that.
That's need-to-know information.
Got it.
Yes.
Well, Ray, I will keep you up to speed. I'm sure you're watching it just as I am.
Yes, there's a gray-haired guy drinking water.
Yes, he is. Yes, the Columbia coach is. He's definitely thirsty.
No.
How are the Warriors taking all the banter in the Twitterverse or the sports universe that this is unfair? The Boogie Cousins signing is unfair, Ray, and the commissioner needs to stop it.
They are cackling like drunks. They couldn't be less interested. I mean, they've done one of the weirdest things ever, and I don't mean like, Boogie Cousins is a difficult guy to deal with. That's not where I'm going. They actually spent $22 million to give a guy $5 million and $16 million to the league for the right to rehabilitate a guy's career so that he can leave and try to beat them next year. That, to me, that's the stunning part of all this, because they're not re-signing him. I mean, which player between Klay Thompson and Draymond Green do you get rid of to keep him, unless you're planning to become the first team ever to pay more in luxury tax than in actual salaries?
Because that's where things stand, right? That's where they stand with the salary cap, correct? With them?
Yeah, that's why they have to pay $22 million to sign Boogie Cousins. Cousins gets $5 million and change, but because they are so far over, because they are in the repeater tax, they have to pay $3.75 for every dollar they spend from this point forward. So basically, 5.2 becomes 21 or 22. I don't want to do the math again. My brain will bleed, but that's pretty much it. I mean, they said, here, we're going to save your career in exchange for three months of really hard work, and then you can go somewhere else and try to beat our brains out next year.
Now, would they have done this had LeBron not arrived in Los Angeles? Is there any sense of striking back and staying a step ahead? Like, why, I guess, would they do something like this?
I think the timing suggests that, but I think they might have done it anyway, because the one thing that the Warriors do that is reminiscent of the old Steinbrenner Yankees is that for the time being, money is literally no object. And so I think when Cousins people called Bob Myers and said, hey, could you fit him somewhere on your team because he's available? I mean, and they reached out and found out that nobody else was interested. So this was sort of, DeMarcus Cousins gambling on himself. And Bob Myers thought about it for a minute and said, well, let me run it by my council of ministers, which is basically his best players. And they all loved the idea. So he basically ran up to Joe Lacob and said, hey, I found a way to blow $22 million. What do you say? And Joe Lacob said, oh, yeah, fine. What do I care? It's just investors' money. And so they just did it. And they did it in a hurry. I don't know that if it was a response to LeBron signing in L.A., I don't think that, dampened their interest in doing it. But, I think they would have done it anyway. The added benefit of watching the rest of the league's shoulders just droop and go, we're screwed for all time, is probably just an added benefit.
Yeah, I mean, there is kind of like a trolling aspect of it. But, Ray Ratto, NBC Sports Bay Area here. But what are they supposed to do? Just sit back and let the rest of the league catch up to them? And if they do have an ownership that says, okay, I know it's going to cost us 3 times as much to spend to feather the nest of our competition into a luxury tax kitty, then so be it. But we're going to continue winning basketball games and championships and continue the dynasty and let everybody else bitch and moan about it, essentially. I mean, that's what's wrong with that?
No, nothing's wrong with it. It is what every franchise's fan base wishes their local billionaire would do. And look, when the price when it all ends, and it's going to end with a crash. I mean, I hope Warrior fans will at least recognize that, A, the crash was inevitable, but the ride was way worth it. It's basically like putting people on a roller coaster and saying at some point the brakes are going to fail and you are all going to plummet into the lagoon and drown. But the ride will be hilarious. So they're signed up for the ride.
How does that sound? I guess. Well, why does it have to end? Because, I mean, the only way that it ends is if somebody demands that they get maxed out in a way that breaks up the team. And, I mean, why wouldn't they want to play in a beautiful new building in San Francisco, California, and be part of one of the best dynasties maybe to play the game next to the Celtics of the 60s, right? And why wouldn't
the reason
why wouldn't
the
they?
reason why the reason why it has to end is because you can't recreate Stephen Curry, and he is the engine around which everything else operates, and he is one of those rare commodities of a superstar who owns the room that he dresses in with his teammates without having to act like he owns the room. It's the reason why he gets along with Draymond Green and Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant and all the other disparate personalities, and why he can sign on so cheerfully to DeMarcus Cousins without a thought, because basically he is like Switzerland with atomic weapons. He doesn't insist on perks that most superstars do, but the ones he does insist on, he insists on with a smile, and everybody gets along with that. So there's less overt agenda-laden egos with this team than most. And when he goes, I don't think you can replace that, because I don't think most people operate that way. They like voting their stock. And Curry doesn't do that, or at least doesn't do it in a way that irritates the other powerful players on this roster. So when he goes, they're going to have to figure out a way to find somebody who is a generational player who is also cool with everybody he plays with.
Yeah,
and I think that's the one thing they can't replace.
Yeah, and who doesn't mind Durant joining the team and winning both NBA Finals MVPs as soon as he joins the team? Ray Ratto, NBC Sports Bay Area here on the Rich Eisen Show. So then let's try and find a fissure. Let's try and find a crack, because that was what West had to say after the championship was won, saying that you have no idea what we've been dealing with here all season long, and everybody from the coach to Draymond Green essentially saying we dealt with a lot. Any idea what was going on in that locker room that they were dealing with a few weeks later, Ray?
Yeah, Zaza Pachulia was threatening people with guns.
Is that true?
No.
Okay.
Complete lie. No, I think the general impression is that a couple of players were having some personal things away from the basketball that were bothering them early. And then when Curry went down, I think there was a little bit of friction over, Durant's place, whether he should take over, whether this should become more of an isolation team. And I think they struggled to sort of operate, in Curry's absence. And I think that's another way that, that not having Curry will affect this team adversely when he retires. It's that he really greases everybody's gears on the floor. And I think, it's one of those things where you get personalities and you put them together for 10 months a year, every day, for 4 years, people start getting a little cranky with each other. But it was nothing, from everything I've been able to find out, there was nothing like genuinely overt. It's pressure every day. It's, time commitments every day. It never goes away. There's summer where they should have it off, and, they're getting sent to China to stir up more money for the organization. It's a job. It's a basketball job that doesn't stop when the game ends. And I think that just creates its own sort of pressure that I think, starts to gnaw on people. But I don't think it was, I don't think it was cataclysmic. I think, there were times when Steve Kerr would say things to try to motivate them in public, and they didn't like that either. I mean, it's stuff that I think happens on every team, but because it rarely happens on this one, it feels like more than it was. Well, that and the Pachulia gun thing.
Oh, Ray, I appreciate it. It's still 0-0. We didn't miss any scoring during this conversation between Colombia and England, but I am wearing a Mexican kit with a Mexican flag on my cheek just to paint the picture because I lost a bet here on the show.
Oh, I was kind of hoping that you just forgotten who was playing today.
No such case. But you may resume your World Cup watching. I really appreciate the time, as always, Raymond.
Yeah, this is basically the only thing that separates us from the animals. Because in all other ways, frankly, there should be a bounty on us.
Take care, Ray. Have a great 4th.
See you later. You too.
You got it. At Ratto NBCS.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.